So this is Anita Telle, and I'm here at the Scotts Valley Police Office with Police Chief John Weiss, and I have a few questions for you. I'm very impressed with what the police force is doing here. Been really impressed with the programs that you have, and I wanted to share that with the listeners. So could you give me a brief outline of the Police Academy's Academy for Kids and the DARE program?
Sure. So we started many years ago with different children's programs in the police department as a way to reach out and try to help kids with their self-esteem, with their relationships with the police officers, and with their peers. Back in the early 90s, almost 1989-90, we had a program called Project Choice with the schools. And it was basically a self-esteem oriented program. That sort of morphed into what became eventually the DARE program later on for us. We didn't have the DARE program back then. It was a different program. But then in 1992, I believe, I was our first DARE officer. And we started teaching DARE in the schools. I went down to LA, went to the training course, I came back and started teaching DARE. It was a 17-week program. And a big focus on DARE, drug abuse resistance education, was to do a couple of things. Teach kids to make better decision making, teach kids to avoid drugs, and there was some component on bullying, but not a lot in the original curriculum. It had more to do with making good decisions. Around that time when I was a juvenile detective, I also started a safety self-defense class. I was a martial artist, and we thought, let's do a program for kids in the summer that might be fun. And we had kids signing up that were middle school age. So it started as sort of a safety self-defense class, and we would talk about things like strangers and how to avoid strangers and how to get out of difficult situations. And it was all geared towards some basic self-defense as well. That over time, after I left investigations, other detectives came into the unit and they started changing the program. And over the years, it morphed into what it's presently called, which is the Junior Police Academy. Okay. We also still teach the DARE program. We can talk about that more in a bit. But our Junior Police Academy, we wanted kids, middle school age kids, as our target group for this program. And we offer 3 sessions during the summertime. And it's a couple summers, I think we had no charge at all. We had some grant funds, and we charge a very nominal fee when we do run the program, like $25, I think, to cover the t-shirts and whatnot. But the focus behind the program is to have kids come out and meet police officers, get to know what we're like, teach them about the police profession, the kinds of things that we do. Because a lot of kids, all they see is what's on television.
Right.
You know, they see cops chasing people and shootings and all these things that aren't really what is the majority of our work. The majority of our work is contacts with citizens in the community, writing police reports, helping people resolve their problems, things like that. So we started this program and we tried to make it an all-encompassing program that teaches kids about criminal investigation, evidence work, teamwork. We have sports as part of it where they have to do teamwork together. We encourage them to cheer each other on so that they all are helping each other through the program. We have them visit the fire department. We take them on sort of a nature cleanup walk. So we do a lot of different things, but the goal behind it is to try to teach them some self-esteem, teach them how to work with one another, learn a lot about law enforcement, and have a lot of fun. The parents love it because they get to drop their kids off,
Yeah.
you know, and that's sort of what the Junior Police Academy is.
So the goal with the Junior Police Academy and the DARE program is mostly with middle school?
Well, with the DARE program, it's 5th grade.
Okay.
Now, DARE does have a curriculum for middle school and high school, but we only have the staff to do the 5th grade. Okay. So we have a detective that gets trained by DARE, and then that detective goes out to our schools in the community. And now it's a 10-week program. It used to be 17 weeks, but you know, schools only have so much teaching time. So it's about 10 weeks, and they go into the classrooms for about 10 weeks, and they teach the kids in the 5th grade, the DARE program. The Junior Police Academy is for junior high, middle school age kids.
Okay.
So 6th, 7th, and 8th grade kids. And so, and the idea behind that is that we're in the 5th grade teaching kids the DARE program, and then a lot of those kids, when they're ready to come to the Junior Police Academy in the summer, they can sign up for that if they want to. So there's some continuity there of a relationship with their local police officers. And then when they get to the high school in Scotts Valley, we have a lieutenant that teaches a criminal justice class through the regional occupation program up at the high school. So some of the kids sign up for that class, and the idea is that we're a small community. We're meeting with kids in the 5th grade through DARE. We're inviting them to come in the summer months to do the Junior Police Academy and learn more about what we do. And then in high school, they get to meet a lieutenant who's teaching about the criminal justice system for those kids who might be interested in going into law enforcement or a related field. But the important thing is, because we're a small town, is that continuity. They're interacting with police officers, 5th grade, middle school during the summer, high school. We also have a school resource officer program at the high school. We haven't had an officer there for the last couple of years because our staffing's been down.
Right.
We're hoping to bring it back this next year.
Do you see with the kids when they kind of start getting used to you guys, when you're out in the field or you're out at wherever you guys are, do you see them like waving to you, or do they feel more comfortable with you? How did it react after the program, so when they see you guys as police officers out there?
It's been great. I can even tell you from my experience of teaching DARE, the summers would roll around, and these kids would be on their bikes. They'd wave to me, Officer Weiss, how are you, Officer Weiss? What's new? How's your dog? Because they get to know you. Part of the DARE program is to encourage the officers to interact with the kids during their playground time. So if there's a break between classes, we'd go out in the playground, have lunch with them, or play tetherball, and just hang out. Mm-hmm. So after even 10 weeks, these kids get to know you. You know them on a first-name basis. They know you. They feel comfortable with you. And so they do. They wave to you. You bump into them in coffee shops, and they come up and they introduce you to their parents. And that's important because police officers can be pretty scary to kids.
Right.
And unfortunately, there are a lot of parents that they don't realize they're doing this, but they say things to their children like, oh, you better behave, Johnny, or that police officer's going to arrest you.
Right.
And what does that do?
Right.
That makes them even more afraid of us.
Absolutely.
And so I don't think I mentioned this to you before, but one of the things we do too to reach out to kids and build rapport is we have, I don't have one on me, but we have trading cards. They're like baseball cards, but they're trading cards with our picture on the front. So mine says Chief John Weiss, and it's got a picture of me in uniform. And you turn it over and it has a little brief message from me. It tells you about my background.
Okay.
And so we hand these out to kids around town. We also have little stickers that have a little police badge sticker on there. This morning I was in Starbucks and we handed out some stickers to kids that were waiting in line. And, you just see them smile when you say, hey, you want a sticker? And you hand them and that way they're not afraid of you. So it's all part of this trying to build rapport with young people in our community and let them know that, hey, we're here to serve you. Don't be afraid of us. And that's part of our mission.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Bullies, they are there, they are intimidating, and they can be really scary. In any of your programs, is there anything there that kind of teach children about like self-respect, self-esteem? Sure. Is there anything like that you guys deal with? Because there is very obvious that children that have that, they are less likely to be bullied.
Right.
So in any of your programs, is there anything like that?
Yes, there is. So the DARE, I'm not teaching DARE currently. It's been a few years, and they continually are revamping the curriculum. But the DARE curriculum does have components that deal with self-esteem, that deal with taking care of yourself, making good decisions, feeling good about yourself. And teaching that in the classroom we use examples. So in fact, I have some curriculum here on bullying that I'm going to leave for you to take with you from the DARE program. But the latest program, there are videos that the officer gets to play that are short, brief video scenarios that the kids watch that include bullying. And then the children get to discuss different options of how would you handle this situation? Fantastic. How would you deal with this type of scenario? And DARE has been doing that for a long time. Even when I taught it years ago, back in the 90s, there was components on talking about self-esteem, talking about the various types of talents that children have are all different, and how you celebrate them. And kids, they really seem to connect when we taught that. I used to use examples from police work that I've had of kids and how they get out of situations when they were bullied. And a big part of this, too, is talking to parents about it and teaching parents about how to help their kids deal with bullying.
That's great. And is there any, because you guys see the children from children, teens to adults, is there any warning signs that you can tell parents about things they should be aware of with their child, maybe even who they hang out with or whatever? Is there any warning sign so that the children make choices to go down the right road?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of warning signs. A big one is who your kids are hanging out with. and what are those kids like. So if your kid's hanging out with a boy or girl who, doesn't look you in the eye when you meet them, who seems standoffish, who, has a reputation at school of not being very nice, as a parent, you need to know who your kids are hanging out with. And a lot of parents are busy. I understand that. We all have to make a living. Some have to commute and work. But if you don't know who your kids are hanging out with, you have no idea who's influencing your kids. We encourage parents, don't just get to know your children's friends, get to know the friends' parents, because that's going to tell you a lot about the child as well. What kind of parent does this boy or girl have? What are they like? There are other things too. Kids who aren't very kind, kids who are rude, kids who don't want to talk to you when you're a parent. These are all warning signs that, gee, maybe this isn't the best kid for my kid to hang out with. And there's little things too, subtleties in your own child's behavior. If they start changing their behavior, do you see your son or daughter becoming less kind or friendly to old friends they've had for a long time? Especially after a new friend comes into the picture. All of a sudden, your son Joey has a new friend named Frank, and your son's old friend Bob, he's not talking to anymore. Or worse, he's not inviting him over or making fun of him or treating him differently. So behavioral changes you really have to look for.
Okay. How important do you think it is for parents to raise their child in a way where the child understands the importance of setting healthy boundaries, as well as being assertive without being aggressive?
Right. Boundaries, I think, are huge. And again, this gets back to the involvement of the parents. If you have a son or daughter and you don't set boundaries in their personal lives, rules in the household of things you expect from them, then you're going to have problems. Because what's going to happen is they're not going to have any boundaries, and they're going to go to school and they're going to do whatever they want. And if you don't set boundaries for what's acceptable behavior at home and what's acceptable for friends to have, we see this with teenage kids sometimes in the high school or junior high who have friends who can stay out very late, and their parents don't seem to mind. And then, if you have boundaries, and then your child knows that, hey, I have to be home at a certain time, so I can't go out and be out all night with you. So boundaries are, I think, one of the most important things you can do for your kid. And they don't always like it. Kids, they want to have freedom. Right. But kids seem to instinctually know that you love them and you care about them when you set boundaries, that you have an interest in their life, and you're involved in what they're doing, and you're interested in what they're up to. And you ask questions about their schooling and who their friends are, and you tell them, here's my expectations for you. My wife and I do that with my son. He's in the high school. He's 16 years old.
Okay.
We did a number of things that I think were very effective, probably because my wife's smarter than me and she figured this stuff out. But one of the things, little things like, we didn't have a TV in his room. We wanted to encourage him to read. So we had a TV in the main room for watching programs, but we didn't have the TV in the room because Lord knows what he might be watching when we're not in the room. We wanted him to read. When he would meet friends, we wanted to meet his friends. We'll invite him over. We'd have the friend come over and we'd say, well, here, you can come over till 8 o'clock and then we're going to take him home. But we had certain rules and expectations. We didn't give him a phone right away with texting and all that. He still doesn't have a phone to text, and he's in high school, which is probably unheard of. But, he calls his friends over and visits with them. But boundaries. Here's when I expect you to go to bed. Here's when I expect you to get ready for school. He gets himself up in the morning. He gets ready for school. I don't have to do that. I think it all comes down to parent participation. You just have to take an interest in your kids' lives and who their friends are and have those boundaries. The second part of your question you mentioned was assertiveness versus aggressiveness. That's probably my iPad dinging, I think.
Okay.
There's a big difference there. I used to teach this with martial arts too. And what it came down to was you have a right to stand up for yourself and to not be bullied. You need to speak out. You need to get help. You need to talk to people, whether it's a teacher or a good friend, and certainly your parents. And sometimes that's hard because bullies have all kinds of ways to intimidate you and get you not to talk. And maybe you might even want to be friends with someone, and the bully is threatening that. There's so many ways kids are pressured to try to be popular or fit in, and bullies take advantage of that. But being assertive means standing up for yourself, but that doesn't mean you have to get involved in fights and start becoming aggressive. And there's so many ways to be assertive, and we try to teach some of that in the DARE program. We try to model some of that with kids out in our junior police academy. When we meet with these kids, we can tell the kids that are very outgoing and the ones that are shyer and more introverted, and we teach them that there's no right or wrong way to be, and you shouldn't judge other people because they're maybe a little different than you. But assertiveness is standing up for yourself and getting help. Where it becomes a problem is if you think you need to start getting into fights and things like that, now you're jumping into aggressiveness, and then that can get you in trouble in school too. Now you're getting dragged into the principal's office, and they may not know who started the fight or what. And so we try to find ways to teach kids tools on how to handle situations when they happen. In the DARE program, by role playing, in your junior police academy, by talking about teamwork and supporting one another, and accepting kids that are different. Because you never know what value a person has. You don't know what they're all about from these looking at them on the outside. There's so much to a person.
I know.
No, we're not the experts. There's people that know more than we do about how to mentor children. And we try to infuse some of these things in our programs.
As lastly, what is the one advice that you would give parents as far as the one thing that could really benefit them and how to raise their child into a child of success, so to speak?
I think I probably already said it in our interview, but it's get involved.
Yeah.
Take an interest in your kid. There's a lot of good families out there and good parents that love their kids, but they're distracted with their work. They're distracted with their own ambitions. And the problem is that you have to talk to your kid every night. We are still able to have dinner together as a family every night, my wife and I and my son. Every night when I get home from work, we have dinner. Sometimes it's a faster dinner than other nights, but we sit down. I always ask my son, how was school today? What's new, what's going on? What are you guys learning in class? Tell me about it. Show me what you're working on. When his friends come over, I always chat with his friends for a little bit and find out what's new with them. I take an interest in his friends. I know his friends' parents. They've come over before and we visited with them. I try to make sure that I am aware of what my kid's paying attention to with programs and movies, video games. The whole thing is I want to be a participant in my son's development. Mm-hmm. And I want him to know that I love him and that I'm interested in what he has to do. I don't want to micromanage his life. I think sometimes you can start becoming a helicopter and then the kid doesn't have any ability to grow on their own.
Right.
They need to find their own way and their own passions. But a lot of our own behavior we model for our children.
It's true.
I see parents that are good people, but they have these wine parties in the weekends and they get a little toasted and they don't always act as well as they could. Is that a good model for your kids? Mm-hmm. Are you sitting around all night on the couch watching insipid programming? Or are you, what are you showing your children? Mm-hmm. I'm not a perfect parent, but I do try to do these things. I'm a reader, so I read a lot. My kid saw that growing up, so he adopted that behavior too. Oh, Dad and Mom read a lot, so I guess that's what we do in this house.
Right.
So there was that. He sees me go for runs at night after work. I think modeling behavior is important. My dad taught me that. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was a little boy growing up, my dad, who was a judge, we had a little girl in the school I went to. I went to a private school, and she was developmentally delayed. Her ride didn't come that day to take her home, and my dad said, Johnny, we're gonna give her a ride home. Because the school said someone needs to give her a ride, and they asked my dad if he would do it. And they knew my dad was a small school. And she didn't live too far from our home, it turned out. So we gave her a ride home. When we dropped her off, I was kind of embarrassed because she was a little different. I didn't know her that well. Right. And my dad said, now, John, make sure you walk her to the front door of the house, because that's what gentlemen do. Mm-hmm. And so I got out and I walked her up to the front door and back. And I had all these little lessons my whole life from my dad about how you should treat other people. And he modeled it. He was always kind to people. He made sure that people were looked after. He defended people that were weak. He was a really good man. I grew up seeing that model. So I think parents have incredible power to influence their kids by modeling good behavior. And if there's one bit of advice I have for parents is do all you can to be involved in their lives and model good behavior, because they're going to mimic that.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.